I'm sure everyone has heard by now, but in case you missed it, Yotpo announced last week that they're sunsetting their email and SMS platforms and partnering with Attentive to handle merchants using those tools. When a major platform sunsets a core product like this, what kind of ripple effects do you see happening in the e-commerce landscape?
First of all, I want to say like I have a ton of respect for Yotpo and the moves that they made. Like it is really hard. I think one thing that's easy to misunderstand is how hard it actually is to build tech at scale. Like it is really easy to go out and build a feature. Um, Anybody can do it. You can go vibe code your way to building some sort of feature. To actually build something that scales to be used by thousands of merchants and millions of people that they're sending emails to in this context or text messages to, that's actually an extremely challenging thing to do. The cascading effect of that though is like whenever you have a new entry into a space, so like Klaviyo did really well here, right? And they've done, in terms of email at least, probably the best job of building a massive customer base there. And actually Attentive is massive too. And so you've got these two companies that have done a really good job. And so everybody's trying to go after a piece of that market share. And so what inevitably happens is a newer entrant comes in. So Yotpo is a newer entrant to this space. They're going to offer more competitive pricing. They're going to offer more service. They're going to do whatever it takes to try to win that business from that category. And so I think when a competitor like that goes away, I think it has the impact of like there's just less competition and less need for those companies to fight as hard for that business. So I think it probably ends up resulting in a higher cost product ultimately for the ecosystem. If I'm a merchant, my concern here is that that space is going to get more expensive, and Yotpo being in that space actually was a net benefit probably to the industry. Um, at the same time, though, if they don't believe they can deliver that product in a way that they're satisfied, whether that's like revenue for their business or the actual end product not being what they want it to be for their customer, then I think that's the right business decision that they made. My guess is that ultimately that results in higher fees in aggregate, at least for those products in the long term.
For any brands suddenly needing to migrate these key channels, what do you think that they should be looking out for in terms of finding a long-term future-proof retention stack?
Like the reality is that it is always a risk to go with an upstart. Like even if they have really compelling tech, cool people, cool processes, like it is always a risk to go with a startup. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do that, to be clear, because the advantage on the flip side is that there's just a difference in the service you're going to get to. So if you would pay Klaviyo in this context 50K a month, or maybe you were paying Yotpo 50K a month, if you go with a newer competitor, you might be their biggest customer and you are going to get a massive amount of service from that business. They're going to do everything. The CEO, you'll have their phone number if you want to, and they'll have you on speed dial and make sure that like you're getting everything you need taken care of. And if you're with a bigger competitor, you're probably not going to get that same level of service just because like you are one of many brands at that level. And then I think it's a question of like how critical is this system? So I would say most brands consider their email marketing to be fairly critical. SMS, depending on the brand, is in the same category, but I honestly, like from what I see, a lot of brands would put SMS in a slightly different level of priority there. Whether they should or not isn't the debate here, but just in terms of like how you look at those things. So, if you look at it and say email is a massively important thing, it drives $1 million a year in revenue for my business, then you have the question of like, okay, well, how much is reliability of important here? And track record. So I think you just have to do that calculation of like, what are you looking for here? Are you looking for exceptional service and lower price, or are you looking for, I just need this thing to work and I'll pay whatever is needed to make sure it works?
What would you say is the biggest lesson that brands can take away from this moment
Mm.
to ensure that they're not caught off guard by future vendor changes?
Like nothing is forever. It's like it's not a lesson. I don't know what you do about this, right? Like the reality is if you look at like how you hyper optimize against something like this, you would go with like let's say you're looking for the email solution that will be around forever. You probably want to go with like the thing that's been around for 30 years, for example. So I don't even know exactly what that is, but it's probably a product owned by Oracle or Salesforce or Microsoft. It's been doing this forever. Um, but it's probably archaic. It's probably slow. It probably like is not fun to use. Doesn't have the newest bells and whistles. So I think there's always a trade-off of like if you're going to go with the newer thing, there is always a risk that that thing is going to go away. Um, and the risk of that going away is higher in that context than it is with technology that's been on the market for 30 years, for example. I personally love new tools, and I think it's just a question of, how the reality is most things aren't that hard to switch off of. In this context, it's a little bit harder. You've got domain warming and those kinds of things. But I think as long as you go with somebody reputable who's doing a good job of trying to support their customers well, they're not going to just turn it off on you. And so in that context, at least you're going to have some time. And, with this, I'm sure Yotpo has some sort of idea of sunset time, but the communication I saw made it look kind of like we're going to support this as long as we need to in order to make sure that our customers are taken care of. And so in that context, if you're working with somebody who's thinking about it that way, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape.